Okay, so prior to the break, we were talking about Planet X Nibiru.
How this all fits into this.
Yeah.
Uh, where what I had mentioned is that it comes about every 3,600 years in history. We have the synchronization with what goes on within the Exodus itself, where we have the Hebrew god Yahweh challenging the gods of Egypt, which we still have with us, by the way. And that's part of what they're trying to invoke to bring those gods back into power. So we have the same thing playing out at the end of days, essentially, or the end of this system. Now, here's the thing. Nibiru, a lot of people might have a problem with it. I remain skeptical, except for two odd things that occurred. Once, when I was watching a documentary, it was about the atmospheres of the different planets within our solar system. And in the documentary, all of a sudden they brought up a brown dwarf star. And they said the atmosphere on a brown dwarf star rains iron. Okay. And they said that there's iron oxide, which a brown dwarf star pours out. The same as our sun throws off solar radiation. Brown dwarf will throw out iron oxide. And they're saying, they gave the whole description. I'm thinking, why are they talking about a brown dwarf star when this is all supposed to be about the atmosphere of the different planets of our solar system? Unless they're trying to tell us something, slip us something in here which is of significance. There's a matchup in one of the prophecies. It's Revelation, the 6th chapter, the 9th through the 12th verses. And when you read what it actually has to say in this particular prophecy, it's really quite amazing when you consider that John was shown this almost 2,000 years ago. The prophecy starts in the 12th verse. Now, picture a brown dwarf star coming between Earth and the sun. And now you know that it doesn't give off much light, and you know that it's clouded in iron oxide. And it's pouring off iron oxide, kind of like an old iron mill would, or an old iron furnace would just throw off sparks. Now, you also have to remember this thing is pretty massive. It's got a considerable amount of mass, so it's going to upset Earth's apple cart just a little bit by the gravitational pulls. It's also going to upset the sun when it goes zinging by, and I'm sure it's going to pull off a lot of plasma if this thing does exist. And this is what a prophecy actually says. So now picture this. The sixth seal is open, and John is shown that the sun, he says, first, a great earthquake occurred. Gravitational pull on the Earth in a direction which is not used to being pulled could certainly cause lots of great earthquakes around the world. Not just one, but lots of them. He goes on to say that the sun became as black as sackcloth of hair, and the entire moon became as blood. Now, old sackcloth made of horsehair, you're not going to see anything through it. It's pretty dark. Picture the sun in a normal solar eclipse. We watch the moon, which is typically bright, shiny, but now it's got its back toward us, goes right in front of the sun and blocks out the sun. Now compare the moon to what they say about Planet X being maybe the size of Jupiter. And picture Jupiter going between us and the sun. The sun would be blacked out for days. Not only that, let's read more. The iron oxide coming off of this thing would certainly get between Earth's atmosphere and the moon. And so the moon would be traveling through all this particulate matter, rust. And what do you think the moon would look like if we looked through essentially a dust bowl of rust? It would be blood red, wouldn't it? Or close to it. Anyway, it goes on and it says that the stars also fell to earth as when a fig tree shaken by a high wind casts off its unripe figs. And it says, and the heavens departed as a scroll that is being rolled up. So this massive thing moving past the Earth, giving off all this iron, the iron pouring through our atmosphere, burning up as it's coming in, would certainly look like tons of shooting stars going off constantly. And we would, because it would be so big as it passed between us and the rest of what we looked up and saw, it would look like somebody was closing a scroll or rolling a scroll up, just that the heavens would be totally darkened. We wouldn't see past this thing with all the particulate matter and the mass itself. It goes on to say that every island group and every mountain were removed from their places. Earthquakes. With something that massive going past us, picture the oceans sloshing around like a bowl of soup almost. You know, you do that to a bowl of soup, it's going to spill. The oceans just sloshing around, washing the coastlines clean. Interesting. 80% of the Earth's population live within 90 miles of a coast. Do the math. Here's where it gets really interesting. It says, and the kings of the earth and the top-ranking ones and the military commanders and the rich and the strong ones and every slave and every free person hid themselves in the caves and in the rock masses of the mountains. And they kept saying to the mountains and to the rock masses, fall over us and hide us from the face of the one seated on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, because the great day of their wrath has come. Who is able to stand? Did John see the deep underground military bunkers, the underground cities that the elite will be headed to when this occurs? They don't care about us on the surface. They're going down to their secure bunkers.
And in fact, just this week, we were able to release on Facebook an extensive video of one of the entry points, seeing all the 18-wheelers, and that's an entry point into the thousands of miles of underground cities under the U.S.
Yeah, you wonder where what is it? Since 1996, $8.2 trillion of the military budget has vanished.
Yeah.
That's a lot of cities underground.
Now, I just want to, in the interest of balanced reporting, we have a group on Facebook called 2013 Dual Sun Mystery. And we use the word mystery advisedly. And this is Mr. David Gregg. He's an amateur astronomer from New Zealand. But he did an extensive critique of Marshall Masters' last report. And just to summarize in one sentence his conclusions, quote, there is no brown dwarf star in our solar system. The nearest known brown dwarf star is 6.5 light years away, further away than our nearest other star, most commonly known as Alpha Centauri, which is 4.3 light stars away. If a brown dwarf were within our solar system, it would certainly reflect visible light from the sun and would be at least as easily as visible in the sky as Saturn or Mars. If it were within our inner solar system, within the orbit of Mars, it would be unmistakable. Again, brown dwarfs are only invisible to us in visible light because of their vast distances from our sun, end of quote. I just wanted to give some, balance to the other side here.
Absolutely. And if you recall, I said that I was skeptic. I remained a skeptic, except... we have some history here of some event happening 3,600 years ago, and the synchronization of a similar event tied to where we are today. And it's not just the event of the Exodus. We had a guest on Late Night in the Midlands one night who had done quite a bit of research on the actual history that was going on during this time period and found both Egyptian records and Chinese records of strange astronomical events and coastal events taking place. So there's some history of this. There's a legend of it. There's no doubt about that. Will it be by? Well, they said, hey, was it Comet Ellen was first Nibiru? Then they started saying that Comet Ison was Nibiru. You start scratching your head and start wondering, hey, is this the boy that cried wolf?
Maybe that's on purpose.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, the
Yeah,
world
no,
was
no, no.
supposed to.
I know. My first book actually, which I wrote in 1973, published in 74, The Age of Cataclysm, was a study of the global coastal event based on geology and seismology and integrated with psychic prediction and the prophecies of Edgar Cayce. So I've been tracking Nibiru for 40 years. So I know
There you
how
go.
serious, and I went back and found data in prior ages where you find, flowers caught in the uh, in the mouths of mastodons and bison, in all these great cataclysmic upheavals. So that there's a great deal of scholarship on all sides, and my my aim here is not to trigger what they call catastrophobia.
Good point. Good point. This is all livable. Okay? What we can't live through is a nuclear exchange.
Yeah,
That we can't live through. And there's good evidence that that'd never happen, even if they push the buttons, expect them to fall out of the sky. The powers that are off of this planet will never let that happen. But regardless, uh, we're much better off dealing with a, quote, natural event because life on Earth has been here for millions of years, more than likely. It's been snuffed out a couple of times, but this is a different situation. We are in a judicial situation on a cosmic, nay, on a multiverse scale. And it's all about whether it comes down to free will. It comes down to who we want to align ourselves with or vibrate with in order to get through this mess. And if we stay in a vibration of love, then we don't give in to fear. You ever hear, of course you have, whenever they want to do a release of something, they run a beta project. Okay, here's a beta test, let's work out the bugs. Interesting thing. When you go back to the event of and you got to love this, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, something happened after they ate the fruit. They realized, number one, they were naked. And then when they heard the voice of God, they became afraid, and so they hid. Now, what changed? Before, they didn't know they were naked. They heard the voice of God, and they were fine with it. Children do not think in beta. Children think in alpha, theta, and delta. It's not until after you go through puberty do you think in beta. Interesting, isn't it? So this is a beta test. They took the human race out of alpha where it wouldn't have made any difference. The kids care, little kids, do they care if they run around naked? Nope. Do they become ashamed of themselves running around naked? Nope. They could care less. They're free. They're happy. They're in alpha. They're innocent. They don't know good from evil. That's why the scriptures say, be as young children. Be guileless as doves. Don't get involved in knowing what's good and bad. But when you read this account where they become afraid, that's in the higher level of thinking. That's in the beta spectrum where the brain is operating somewhere between 16 to 28 cycles per second, depending on just how afraid you are or how fast you're reacting to something. And so essentially from that point on, the alpha test was over and the beta test on whether man could handle the higher consequences of the fight or flight syndrome would work. And here we are. Cobra said 1975 was a significant year. It was. 1975, if you do the biblical chronology, would have actually been the anniversary of 6,000 years of man's biological engineering here on Earth, or man's creation and biological start here on Earth. So yeah, that is a significant date. And here we are, 35 years, 40 years almost past the fact. That's significant in itself again. And so here, when you look at what's being spoken about in the prophecies, and you listen to what the channelers are talking about, you can really start to get the feel that, hey, you've got, I won't say rival groups, but there's a problem, and all of a sudden, extraterrestrials are involved. You read the scriptures, there's a problem, and guess what? Extraterrestrials are involved. You go to Revelation, the 12th chapter, and it talks about a war that breaks out in the heavens, or the multiverse. And it says that Michael and his angels fought the great dragon and its angels, and the great dragon did not prevail, and down to the earth, or the third dimension, it was cast. Go back about 100 years, and all of a sudden the lights came on around the world, basically. The First World War started, and we have never been the same since. Military technology has gone from mechanical to space age in essentially less than 100 years. Where did the technology come from? Most of the military whistleblowers will tell you that, hey, there's aliens involved. And whether you believe it or not is another question. But there's a lot of psyops, which is all tying in to the invoking of these alien gods, for lack of a better word. There's both off-planet and on-planet conflict. And they've come to the point, we've gotten to the point where this needs to be resolved, and it will be one way or the other. And so we're down to the last push. You've got the alien faction, which is backing Siriamis, the goddess of the earth, moon, and stars, wants to make a rise to power. And then there's the alien faction, which would be backing the star of Molech, or Nimrod, who was the original god, sun king. Those two factions. Now, you tell me if they're the Galactic Empire, or the Palladian Council, or if they're from Sirius, the dog star, or they're from Orion. I have no way of proving where they're from or disputing what they say. But I can tell you what, all of a sudden, they're all starting to chirp the same sound. And it's all starting to match up what's in the scriptures.
And so, is that just tit versus tat, or does that make a difference to us?
It does make a difference, because the extreme alien plan is to destroy the whole planet. That's why we have as many nuclear weapons as we do. I mean, at one time, at the height of the nuclear war, we had enough nuclear explosives to equal, 20,000 pounds of TNT for every man, woman, and child on the planet. That ought to do it. And even the cockroaches aren't going to survive that. So that's one plan. And then that plan has been sequestered and busted. They're not going to allow that to happen. And so, you've got different rival factions, and that's exactly what we hear from the channelers, that, it's the bad reptilians which are trying to blow up the earth, and we're here to stop that, or whatever they're talking about themselves. It's going to come down to one simple thing. Christ is not coming back as the Prince of Peace. We have to remove that religious context out of this, because we're not talking about some man that was nailed to a stick 2,000 years ago. We're talking about a very powerful extraterrestrial alien being, someone who has the legal right to this planet.
Now, just to go there, in our community, there's a way of thinking that has translated the second coming as the landing of Christ consciousness, or unity consciousness, and not necessarily as literally the coming of a specific being. Could you talk more about those differences there?
Absolutely. If you notice that there's one One comment which I started to hear coming out of the alien channelers and that is, we have to come to a unison of love. Love has to be part of the ingredient. Well, that goes back to what is considered to be the greatest commandment given. Jesus said that we should love Yahweh our God with our whole heart, soul, and mind. And like it, the second greatest commandment was to love our neighbor as we do ourselves, to have love for each other. And we're starting to see that awakening. Now, why is this so important? Love puts us into the alpha state of mind and takes us out of the beta state. It's very hard to love something in beta, because beta is where you are doing your fighting or your flighting from. You know, you try to make love to your dearest loved one in beta, and they're probably going to beat you up because it just ain't going to work. You got to go back to that alpha state. And that alpha state brings us down. Now, interesting thing, alpha ranges from about 14 to 16 down to about 8 or 10 cycles per second. And then beyond alpha, you go into theta, which vibrates from 8 down to 4. The Earth vibrates between theta and alpha. It vibrates between 7 cycles per second and 12 to 13 cycles per second. When the Earth is calm, it vibrates at 7 cycles per second. When it gets a little excited, it's up to about 12 cycles per second. You know what? If we are cycling, if we are vibrating with the Earth, guess what? We're in harmony. We're in harmony. You can only do that in alpha. You can't do it in beta. You can't do it with you have to be at peace in alpha to do that. And that takes you out of fight or flight. So the beta test was a failure. It's just that simple. The beta test of Earth was a failure. And now we have to go back to that alpha, which was what was originally set out in the prime directive. The first human couple, the first human pair that was seated on this Earth were both placed here in alpha, and they were told to be fruitful, become many, and fill the Earth in loving harmony as a family. The tree of knowledge split us up into the human race: competition, war, death. It put us into the fight or flight, into the beta testing mode, which has failed. Now we have to go back to the alpha mode, the original design, and that's where that harmony of peace and love come in, because you can't love in beta like you can in alpha. I promise you, when you are in the most passionate throes of lovemaking, you are in alpha.
Right. Now, how does this relate to Armageddon and the second coming?
It's by understanding this. Now, you've heard me talk about Yahweh, you call it source. I'll give you a definition. Yahweh is the multiverse in which we live. It's everything that we see in our third dimension, plus everything that exists in at least the other 7 dimensions, which we need to have in order to exist. Earth is like a piece of protoplasm inside of a cell that is turned cancerous in your body. So think about that. Little piece of protoplasm running around inside of a cell that is inside one of the organs in our body just went cancerous. Well, in the body of Yahweh, that's exactly what has happened. Earth has gone cancerous. Matter of fact, the whole solar system went cancerous. And now it's time to remove the cancer. It's just that simple. That cancer will not be allowed to be spread across the Earth or across the galaxy or the universe. The beta test was here. Beta test time is over. It failed. We have nothing but war and misery on this planet. So when we talk about creator or source or Yahweh, it's being in harmony, having a loving harmony with the consciousness of the multiverse. It's just that simple. We have a soul. Our soul is essentially our consciousness and our life force. The aura that we have around our bodies is our soul leaking out of our bodies. when you die, everybody has a different death experience, except for one thing. They're all connected to the white light. They're all connected back to source. You will not find any two people who have had the same near-death experience. Nope. Trust me, I've tried. I was part of a near-death experience group. Everybody has a different experience. Mine was very simple. One second I was in my body. Next second I was out of my body looking down. Everything changed from color to black and white. All I saw was the slightest little wisp of what appeared to be like smoke rising out of the middle of my chest. And when my consciousness shifted to where I was going, I could actually feel myself being pulled away from my body. When my consciousness shifted, I was physically or metaphysically connected to the great white light, I guess physically on some plane, and it was literally pulling me toward it. And it was like, I was not really fearful. During the process, when I understood that something was wrong, I was terrified. I couldn't get any message across, nothing, I couldn't say anything. All I could do was see. And that part was terrifying. The next part, I was under protest. I didn't want to die. I just had to start a new chapter in my life. The last part, when I finally gave up the protesting, I said, okay, where are we going? I don't have any control over this. That's where I saw where I was headed, and it just pulled me more and more into it. And then it stopped and pushed me back. The soul that we have is physically connected to what we call the soul of the universe, the great white light. We are also connected else, both at the same time. Coincidence? Yeah. Why? Because we have that connection. It's that spirit connection, that soul connection that keeps us together. Exercise that. Bring that together in a state of love, and it doesn't matter what this world does. We will survive it. We'll live through it.
Right.
Because we'll be caring. We'll be in the right vibration. So the factions of this world could go fight among themselves and war among themselves. As long as we don't get involved with that and develop that conscious connection back to source and to each other, we'll be fine.
Yeah, and that's the landing of Christ consciousness. Now,
Yeah, kind of. It's an awakening.
yeah,
It's an awakening.
yeah.
The landing might be a bit more physical.
Oh, okay, now.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
now let's get to the issue of the second coming of Christ, because that's something that has I've noticed has lost a lot of quote legitimacy, in the sense that, from my point of view, there has been a tremendous meme war against the whole concept of legitimate Christianity by the Zionists, by the forces of world Zionism. I'm not talking, i.e., there was the infiltration of Christianity so that fundamental Christianity was identified as Christianity, whereas fundamental Christianity was just another version of Zionism to support the state of Israel, number one. Number two, uh, there was the the whole enmity of the Zionists against the concepts of a person like Jesus, or a person like Buddha, or a person like Muhammad, and that is avatars that come. And of course, the claim of the Christians is that Jesus is more than an avatar. He's an emanation of the actual divine source. And that's what one among the myriad things that makes this planet very special, because in order to really attain its fullness in divinity, that entity who was the Son of God had to have an experience inside a created universe, as a creature inside the created universe. And for whole multiples of reasons, it chose Earth, principally because of the Lucifer rebellion. And so the way I see you're talking about the second coming, and I really respect your analysis as a hermeneuticist, is that you are reviving a concept of the second coming of Christ that has really been discredited by the fundamentalists, by the Zionists, and in modern thought. Oh, the second coming of Christ, that's preposterous. That's utterly comical and preposterous. No, I'm just, I mean, my God, I can
play devil's advocate.
Yeah. No, I'm not playing the devil's advocate. I'm showing that there has been an attack because there are different dominions that are vying. Like, which column is this planet going to be in? Is it going to be in the satanic planet? Is it going to be in the Christ column? Is it going to be in the Christ column? Is it going to be in the satanic column? What column is this planet going to be in?
When it's all over and done with, it'll be in the love column. It'll be in the Earth family column.
Yeah.
But let's look at, the second coming of Christ.
Yeah.
Don't think that some guy with long hair and a robe is going to show up in peace. That's not what the scripture says. Let's go back to Genesis.
Right.
We have a record of biological engineering of the human species on this planet. You go back to the time of Christ, you've got a record of an extraterrestrial informing a human host that it has been impregnated with a very special person with perfect DNA. This person had a pre-human existence, according to what was told. The Son of God, the Son of Yahweh, has been impregnated into the womb of this young Hebrew woman. We look at the record, and I'm not going to argue the theological record on did Christ do these things. Let's just take it for face value. The record says that this man, who was announced by an extraterrestrial, had the capability of doing advanced performances of magical feats, miracles. We didn't understand them. However, when we look at the account, it says that he was perfect. He was a perfect Son of God, and that he was blessed. And now he could control the life force flowing through his body in order to lay his hands on people, in order to create things that we don't mathematically understand yet, in order to get the genes of whatever it was that the fish and the loaves were made out of, enough, they took leftovers and fed over 5,000 people, and then to add extras. He was said to be able to command the weather, to walk on water, and his first miracle, quite interesting, to change the molecular structure of water into that of wine. So, now, what does this all mean? Well, he said, look, these are the things that are possible. These are the things that are going to happen on a worldwide basis when I get back. Because my kingdom is not part of this world. And so now you have what essentially remains intact within the first century, where you have the true message that this extraterrestrial that we know as Jesus, the Messiah, the owner of this planet, is going to, the blood owner of this planet, is going to come back and claim what is his. And when you go to Revelation, the 19th chapter, it says that he comes back on a horse, symbolic of war. He's dressed in white, a pure color. And there's a sword that comes out of his mouth, and he judges the nations with this sword. Not the people, the nations are judged. And he's not coming alone. He's coming with the armies, plural, of heaven, as it says, or we might update it to the multiverse. And involved in these armies are interdimensionals, and among the interdimensionals will be the immortals. We know the names of 12 of the immortals. Actually, we know the names of more than 12 of the immortals. You can start right down with the first 12 apostles. They're all part of the immortal group. The immortals have been those who, whether they were reincarnated here on Earth, came in because of a specific woman, the woman's seed program, or whether they were just brought into a specific line of family, they have remained vigilant since the first century. No doubt some of them were burned at the stake for trying to expose the church 1,000 years ago, actually 1,500 years ago. The church burned Bible readers at the stake. Why? They didn't want this message getting out. If this message got out, their Mithra worship, their sun worship, which can be tracked back to ancient Egypt, would get out. You know the symbols. What is it? IHS on is IHS. I know there's an I, there's an H, and there's an S. On the holy symbols, you know, whenever you see a holy document, it has the IHS. Isis, Horus, Set, the Egyptian gods. What's right outside, right smack in the middle of St. Peter's Basilica? The pillar of Ra, a phallic symbol dedicated to Ra, inside the womb of Isis, perhaps? You see, it all goes back. And so if the church was exposed 1,000 years ago for what it really was, we'd never get to this point now. But here we can see where all this is exposed on a, if you want to call it on a religious level, the ancient gods are being invoked to gain their power. Now, who's invoking them? Are these allies of Christ? No. These are the seed of the serpent, which has been in control of this planet for the past 4,500 years. You have to look elsewhere. The small people who speak out, who speak truth and only truth. Is that the seed of the woman? Yes. And they're getting, people like you, like me, like many, many others across the planet, are getting little bits and pieces of information out. They're able to assemble all the pieces of the puzzle and say, look, it matches. This is the time. Wake up. Come to the realization of where we are. And now the world is just getting blatant about it. Come on. 7 days for the second death of Mandela, which ends on the date that it does, with this monument, the Vortrekker monument being ignited on the 16th, having an alignment there, in plain daylight. In plain daylight. How do you hide something that's so obvious? Stick it in the most obvious place. Nobody will ever see it. They'll be too busy trying to figure out how to pay their bills and taxes.
Now, okay, so is Armageddon the prequel to the Second Coming then?
You could say, yeah, kind of. Armageddon is the Second Coming. Armageddon is the war that will turn around and get rid of all the extraterrestrial rebels and their earthly forces and remove them. The Cabals, as we call them today. Where's that word come from? Oh, yeah, Kabbalah, which is the ancient secret writings of the Molechs, not the Hebrews, the Molech worshippers. It goes back to ancient Egypt, when they could invoke the words to make the stones light as a feather or turn their sticks into snakes. You know, it goes back to why they want this ancient knowledge. Why did Hitler go to the Middle East? Why did Napoleon go to the Middle East? Why is the New World Order still digging up stuff in the Middle East? They want the power. Look, Osiris, the tomb of Osiris. Dr. Robert Schoch said 10 years ago, based on Edgar Casey's work, said the tomb is underneath there's something underneath the Sphinx, and the Sphinx is at least 7,000 years old. Dr. Zaharia Watts said, New Age thinking, nothing to it. Until they turned around and said, oh, we found the tomb of Osiris. But it was empty. Nothing was in it. Right. That's why you guys did a secret dig that took 3 years in order to empty out the water, and then put a Red Bull event up in front while you excavated underneath the Sphinx in order to find out what was in there. And nobody actually knows, but 6 people died when the contents of what was taken out of that crypt of Osiris was taken off of the site of Giza. 6 people died during the night, and from what I understand, there were men in black on the scene during the last days of that excavation. I got that I got it as secondhand from somebody who received it as firsthand by a friend who was on the dig, on a different dig on that site. He was a history professor that was telling me about this.
Wow. And what was the artifact there?
They don't know, but it was legend, I guess, that the book of the dead was supposed to be in the tomb of Osiris. And what he had reported is that several cases, I actually saw pictures of items that were boxed up in cases behind bars in a holding area. They were sent to me several years ago. It was before about 3 years ago, I guess, before they made the announcement that all this was going on. And lo and behold, Zaharia Wasp pops up and says, oh, we found the tomb of Osiris, and it was empty. Yeah, they cleaned it out first.
Right. Now, when do you foresee in this process the Armageddon process happening and the Second Coming process happening?
Well, the Armageddon process seems to be tied into a Nibiru or Planet X type event.
Oh.
Yeah, you see, this is where we have to kind of like pull together here. If that happens, the infrastructure of this planet is going to be destroyed. Done. Over.
Yeah.
Cooked. That's no argument. I wish them well in their underground bunkers, because they'll probably be all collapsed with all the shaking going on. But when that passes by, that collapses the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Now, the general population, guess what? Uncle Sam ain't around to take care of us. FEMA ain't operating. This comes down to, Alfred, you and me. Are we going to join forces, or are we going to fight?
Yeah.
You see, now we have to show caring and love for each other. That's in order to get through the process. While, guess what? When's the best time to attack an enemy? After you bombard them. The Earth is essentially going to be bombarded by a Planet X or Planet X or Nibiru type event, according to what we have written out in the scriptures and what you can consider legend or law.
Well, it's funny because I've been watching all these programs on the KT event, and it seemed to me that the KT event was an intentional bombardment to end that phase of the reptilian manifestation on the planet, to allow the mammalian manifestation to come in. And it was because it was so targeted. Within 24 hours, the only things that were left were little mammals and, crocodiles.
Well, maybe we need another KT event to eliminate the reptilians. You see, it's not just us. There is every faction of every extraterrestrial alien species involved in what is going on right here on this little third rock from the sun. Right. All eyes are here. Some are directly involved, some are observers, some are combatants. It's just the way it is. The combatants have us right now. That's why Earth is referred to as a prison planet. Makes you wonder about the name of Ison.
So this is like a great cosmic bowling ball.
Not exactly. What you mean, Ison? Yeah.
No. I mean
Planet X.
Planet X. It's the great cosmic bowling ball that comes down the pike.
Pretty much. Here it comes, and I bet you it's going to be a strike. That's it. And so all of the New World Order insanity and nonsense comes screaming to a halt All the rats run down the tunnels. They all run down to their underworld cities thinking, stupid humans. They'll be left there. The bottom dwellers, the bottom feeders, let them kill each other off. And they'll all hide thinking that, hey, they're cool, they're good. No problem. We'll just come out after all the radiation's gone and we'll reclaim the surface. It is not going to work that way. Sorry, folks. It is not going to work that way. It is the end of the Nibiru event, which brings in the judgment. Let me just jump back to that. You see, when they run in Revelation chapter 6, when they run for their underground bunkers, that's in verse 15. And in verse 16, they keep saying to the mountains and to the rock masses, fall over us and hide us from the face of the one seated on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, because the great day of their wrath has come. It's on us. So that Armageddon will take out the infrastructure first, and then it'll take out the rulers second. It'll capture all the alien rebels that have brought this upon us, all the Luciferian worship sacrifices, and all of that will all stop. It'll come to an abrupt end. All the shills gone. Boom. Because they'll be fighting each other. They'll be fighting each other, and what's ever left over, they'll be taken care of by the armies of the multiverse. You see, that's... You look at some things that were recorded in the scriptures. 185,000 Assyrian soldiers were put to death in one night by a messenger of God.
So
there's an army of them coming.
So how do you interpret, phrases like, and I don't have the exact phrase here, so I can't repeat it. It says, were it not for the elders or something, or were it not for the chosen or whatever.
If it were not for the chosen, no flesh would be saved.
No flesh would be saved.
Yeah.
Is that what they're talking about?
Exactly.
Yeah. And
so how do you become a chosen one?
And so that for the sake of the chosen.
Yeah. The chosen ones.
And so what now? The motto of the Jewish race is God's chosen people. I mean, that's like their like you go anywhere and it's like written in like stone, neon, whatever. God's chosen people. So is that what's going on?
Let me clarify that. Revelation, the 3rd chapter, and the 9th verse. Look, I will give those from the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews, and yet they are not, but lying. Look, I will make them come and do obeisance before your feet and make them know I have loved you. That answer your question, Alfred?
Well, in a bit. Yeah. Just the synagogue of Satan is the satanic Illuminati, right?
Yeah, essentially. And you see, we find that woven through the political entity, not the religious entity. I want to make this perfectly clear. This is not an anti-Semitic statement. Speaking of Zionism, speaking of the Democrats or Republicans or communists, it's all the same group of political shills that are trying to control what's going on this planet.
Yeah.
You know, you go search... let's see, the Hasidic population, the pious ones, the ones who were put to death during the Holocaust, and you won't find any of them who like Zionists.
Right.
Type in Jews against Zionism and see what pops up.
No, I understand. So by chosen really comes up for words that you can also say people in unity consciousness or people in love consciousness, people in Christ consciousness. That's what's really meant.
Well, it's who's doing the choosing. You see, really, the choice is on our part.
Yeah.
You see, if we have to choose to say, okay, I don't care what you say, I'm not going to go kill anybody.
Yeah.
I don't care what you say. I'm going to share what we have with those poor people next door.
Yeah.
I'm going to share what I've got with others, even if it's the last grain of rice. I'm going to do my best to help humanity, to help my human brothers and sisters to survive this mess. And you see, once we come out the other side, the human race is over, the human family's together.
Now, what did the prophecy say about what the second coming is like? That is, assuming, like, what's that like? What is that like?
Yeah.
Is that
Alfred,
like,
yeah, it's going to be pretty physical from what we can see. We find more of that in Revelation, the 19th chapter.
I
Uh,
mean, it is that like the landing of the Pleiadians at the United Nations? Is that what it is?
mm, no, it's going to be more like, it'll be more like a major invasion of something. Could be pure energy, balls
Energy,
of pure energy
balls of pure energy.
coming in, and all. You ever see the last crusade? No, the first Indiana Jones movie where they get the Ark of the Covenant, and they go to open the Ark of the Covenant, and they look inside, and it's like this swirling, goes on forever, and then all of a sudden this very feminine, beautiful face comes up
Mm-hmm.
and looks into the priest's eyes, and then all of a sudden it turns to a skull. And next thing you know, these things are all over the place and they kill everybody.
Poof.
Picture something like that.
Wait a minute. I just lost something.
We're
Uh,
dealing with interdimensionals, Alfred. We're dealing with something that is not flesh and blood, which is actually coming back. We're dealing with something that is pure energy.
yeah.
And so, it's not like put phasers on stun. Think of entities that control
No, but
the God particle.
no, right. But assuming Armageddon. So what you're describing is Armageddon, not.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, I got a bit confused.
Nibiru goes past.
Yeah,
The infrastructure of Earth is destroyed.
destroyed.
Yeah.
People are
Okay.
kind of living how they live, and then
We're walking around in a daze.
yeah,
Okay. Now, depending on what happens at that juncture, whether
yeah,
we coalesce and come together and work together,
yeah,
or whether we're ready to start killing each other, and this is not just a process
yeah,
we need to start working, cultivating caring, kindness, and a loving attitude
yeah.
toward all life on this planet now. It's mental exercise. It's exercise for who we
Right.
are.
Now,
So
at that
it's
juncture, what's happened to the people in the underground, the New World Order people? Are
I
they
would imagine.
are they
Well,
down there waiting or
not all of them make it, evidently, because
okay?
when you get let's see, I want to just go down here to Revelation, the 19th chapter, where it actually talks about the return of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords.
Okay, yeah,
This is after the harlot is destroyed. She's gone away. It's destroyed by, or I say, religion is destroyed by the New World Order. And interestingly enough, one of the subheadings, one of the headings in the Protocol of the Learned Elders of Zion is, "We shall destroy God," starting with Christendom. So it's their desire to eliminate all religion on the planet.
exactly.
That go read it. It's there in black and white. But here's what Revelation actually says, and I'm just going down to where I want to. It talks about Jesus showing up as the King of Kings. It says in verse 11, 19 verse 11, it says, "And I saw the heavens opened up." Portal opens. Guess what? Coming out of hyperspace, or coming out of having a dimensional time travel scenario where they just all of a sudden pop up here.
Right.
Um, it says, heavens open up and look, a white horse, and the one seated upon it is called Faithful and True, and he judges and he carries on war in righteousness. So there is going to be some sort of a war. And he says, it goes on and says, his eyes are a fiery flame, and upon his head are many diadems. So he's got rulership in his crown. Many diadems would be for many different countries or kingdoms. He has a name which no one knows what is written but he himself. And he is arrayed with an outer garment sprinkled with the blood, and the name he is called is the Word of God. So this is the Word as is talked about in John chapter 1, the book of John chapter 1. It goes on to say, and out of his mouth there protrudes a sharp, long sword, that he might strike the nations with it, and he will shepherd them with a rod of iron. He treads too the winepress of the anger of the wrath of God the Almighty, and upon his outer garment, even upon his thigh, he has a name written, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And from there, it goes on into Revelation, the 17th chapter, where it says, I also saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried out with a loud voice, said to all the birds that fly in mid-heaven, come here, be gathered together to the great evening meal of God, that you may eat the fleshy parts of the kings, and fleshy parts of the military commanders, and the fleshy parts of the strong men, and the fleshy parts of the horses, and of those seated upon them, and the fleshy parts of all the freemasons, the freemen. I love doing that. And as well as the slaves of the small ones and the great. So the servants, the slaves of the small ones and the great.
The shills.
The infrastructure, the shills, yeah. So you see, it goes right down the list. The kings, the military commanders, even the horses. Now, we don't see horses used in battle. We don't see the kings leading the troops out in battle. We see the generals. We see the presidents or the rulers of the planet giving the command. We saw Obama saying, we need to go bomb Syria. Didn't we? Didn't we? And see, it's against those same very ones that the King of Kings and Lord of Lords comes against. So there's this army. Don't think it's a religious return. It's an intermultiverse army. It's an interdimensional army that is coming this way. And the army is made up of the most powerful creatures in the multiverse. Very simple.
Whoa. So sit back and get your popcorn, but really, it's going to be pretty wild.
It is. We're in for a heck of a ride, because people are going to be, and the scriptures say this, people will become faint out of fear for what's going on around them. They're not going to understand. Now think about this, Alfred. If you never heard this show, and one day you're sitting out there and all of a sudden the sun goes dark and you start seeing the sky light up with stuff falling through it, and there's great earthquakes going on, you might just die of a heart attack. But if you know that, hey, this is Planet X, this is coming through, I know what to do. I've been prepared. I've been waiting for this. Time to get off the coastlines. Time to go further in. Time to start putting that prayer, that loving connection into work. To start, well, it's a long time to, it's too late if you're only going to start then. We need to be conscious of our needs now. It's exercising muscles. We don't become experts overnight. We don't go out and run a marathon just because we say, oh, I think I'm going to go run a marathon today. There is training that's involved. It's all spiritual. It's all personal. And it has to come from the inside. Even your guest, Cobra, said that we have free will. We are the ones who have to make the decision. So nobody can force us. We have to make this decision. And it's that free will that will bring us into either working together or fighting against each other. So, if you have that goodness to you, if you have that desire to help others, if you have that love for fellow human, to try to help them understand, chances are you're on the right path. Grab your popcorn, sit back, and get ready for the fireworks.
You know, we have actually been going for, this is a record for Exopolitics TV, and in a way, it's true that we've only scratched the surface.
Yeah, I mean, we can go down so many rat holes.
Yeah,
And we could go look at the support from the Mayan text. We can go back to the Egyptians. We can go
yeah,
back to the ancient Sumerians. We can go down these and examine all of
sure.
these and find that they're all linked back to the same thing.
But today was an exploration of something that we've never touched on before, and I wanted to provide a platform for you to really talk about it, and that is the physical second coming of Christ, because that's a concept that has been discredited, in my judgment, and there's
I
been a
agree.
real war upon that concept, coming out of the protocols of the Elders of Zion, by the way. That is, it's the world Zionist plan, I think, that has really, over the last 50 years to 100 years, really attacked the concept of the second coming of
Absolutely.
Christ.
Absolutely. Look who's pushed Darwinism. Look who's got all of academia essentially discrediting anything from the Bible. Yet historically, there are records in the Bible. Sennacherib's temple. Everybody thought that was Sennacherib's palace, who was one of the Assyrian kings. Everybody thought that was a myth. Guess what? They found it right where the scripture said it would be. And it's on over and over and over. Those things did exist. And so whenever, just recently, some more Dead Sea Scrolls were released and found and released, or at least the information is. But the Dead Sea Scrolls, from what the Hebrew scholars say, our Bible has not changed, or at least the Hebrew portion has not changed in the last 2,000 years. It's virtually the same. A couple spelling errors, a little grammatical work, it's the same thing. Now, that's coming from the people, and this is a closed group, by the way. The Hebrew scholars who study the Dead Sea Scrolls know stuff that they are not telling us. And they're all sworn to secrecy. They're not talking about some of the stuff that they found. It's a closed society. And just recently, they released some more information. So, little by little, it comes to light. But when you look at the scriptures, okay, if they haven't been changed, and Alfred, if I can look at it from a scientific viewpoint and figure all this stuff out, then it couldn't have been changed very much, because it all comes in, all has synchronicity with our time. And if it was changed, why didn't they change the ending, where the Vatican keeps on going forever, and all the House of Windsor is secure, the Rothschilds are secure, all of the dragon families are secure? Why didn't they change it to say that? Because they can't. And so they discredit what they cannot know, what they cannot explain away. So the church started off burning Bible readers at the stake to hide the truth. And then when that was no longer in vogue, of course, academia, the age of enlightenment took over. And now universities opened up across the world, places of higher learning, most of all of which are supported by the funds of, guess who? The world elite. You go and you say, I want to go study Noah's flood. There's no way you'll find money for that. But say I want to find evidence of global warming in the past, or climate change in the past, and you'll find evidence of that. And you know what they find? They find that where the glaciers are retreating, the vegetation is approximately 5,000 years, 5,500 years old, which would sink and become synchronous with the flood of Noah's day, one long Bakhtun ago.
Right.
All comes back to the same thing.
No. Sure. Well, this is a very, very crucial point, and there are very few people. In fact, you're the only person that I know that's in in the what I would call interdimensional, multidimensional community that is outside of the fundamentalists, who really has studied the matter deeply and can make an honest case for the second coming of Christ. And I'm glad that I mean it's really quite quite an awesome thing to say that, I think, publicly, and which you do, and I just want to acknowledge that. I mean,
Well,
I'm
thank
just,
you, Al.
you know, you know, I'm saying, okay, that's a hypothesis. You know, I'll just put it out there as a. I mean, I'm just saying from my point of view, that's a hypothesis that would certainly be along the positive timeline, and far be it from me to, you know, call the shots there. Uh, uh,
Alfred, one thing just along the positive
yeah,
timeline. You see, I don't want to leave this with the end of war and leave the
yeah,
earth devastated, because
yeah, yeah,
that's the beginning.
yeah.
That's the a new beginning, a rebuilding of the future.
Of the
And
future.
the future positive timeline is so unbelievably
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. Well, talk to us about that.
One of the things that were shown, interestingly enough, when you go read the record of Christ, hey, you cure the sick, make the lame walk, feed masses, raise the dead. You get to Revelation, the 21st chapter. It's very interesting. It says that pain, sickness, sorrow, death will all become part of the past. It says that the tent of God would be with mankind. Now, God's Spirit showed up as a dove, allegedly, when Jesus was baptized. Jesus could do all these things. Jesus had perfect DNA. What if we had perfect DNA? Interestingly enough, we've got a 2,000-year journey through the photon belt, according to what the researchers say. Photons change your DNA. They help improve your DNA. They make it better. Okay, I didn't research it, but that's what they say. So we have a 2,000-year ride. We eliminate, right off the top, we eliminate the cabals. We eliminate the cabal system. We eliminate the hate that is generated on this
Okay.
planet. Now you can start to live in peace. But this is where the reign, or that the reign of peace comes from. You see, we get our DNA repaired. We get moved to a more perfect body. And once we attain that perfection, well, guess what? We'll have the same abilities that Christ did. There's only one problem. Nobody will be dying. Nobody will be getting sick. The earth will be transformed into a planet that is absolutely one beautiful garden and produce food more than we can ever consume. And we will have the prospect of living forever. Now, people are going to say, wait a minute. I don't want to live forever. This place is going to be too crowded. Aha. This is where the new scrolls are opened, and the scriptures don't say much about anything beyond really what I just told you, except that new scrolls would be opened. But what are in those scrolls? Well, we can get a little glimpse. There's a little glimpse if you know where to look. Science helps us a lot. According to the latest findings, 20% of the stars that are out there, 20% of the star systems have Earth-like planets, planets that are in what they call the Goldilocks system. Now let's do the math. Let's see, over the hundreds of billions of stars within the Milky Way, hundreds of billions of galaxies within the universe. That ought to give us a few trillion Earth-like planets to go populate. And there indeed is the next step. That was the prime directive. If we are living within Yahweh, and the plan is for the human family to expand throughout the third dimension. You know, how do you feel when you're in love, Alfred? Don't you feel good? You feel happy? Feel like, oh, you can almost burst with gladness from the inside out? Think about physically filling the third dimension with that kind of love. And God has all the time He wants for it to be accomplished. Isn't
So,
that an interesting future?
yeah. So what you're
Earth,
saying, Yeah.
Earth is just the starting point.
Yeah, yeah. Today is 12/12/13, okay? December 12th, 2013. So what you're saying is that between today and X amount of time, 2017, 2018, whatever,
2019,
2019,
2020,
2020, there's going to
whatever.
be a huge discontinuity.
Oh, yeah.
A
As a matter of fact,
huge discontinuity. It's not
absolutely.
like the difference between 2005 and 2013.
We're going to see discontinuity come 2014 with the fall of the U.S. dollar. We're going to see a lot of economic problems, but
Yeah,
those
yeah,
problems will be solved.
yeah,
Okay, and those problems will go away, and the Earth will say, "Hey, we fixed it.
yeah,
We got it solved. Peace and security. Everybody's fat,
yeah,
dumb, and
yeah,
happy. Everybody's got money in their pockets. Nobody has debt.
yeah,
Isn't this great? Let's make King William king of the world.
yeah,
We'll really be happy then." You know,
yeah,
it's like we're walking into it.
yeah, yeah.
We're getting to that
So
point.
we're, yeah, yeah. So really, it's time to open our consciousness. Well, look,
Yeah,
we're going to have to break this show up into a number of segments because we have gone.
almost 3 hours now.
This is a record, and I really want to thank you for having taken this time and put this amount of extraordinary insight and vision into this program, Peter. And I really want to be able to come back from time to time and ask you to share that as we move through this, magnificent scenario, which you have to admit changes on a day-to-day basis. So it always has to be reinterpreted in a way.
Alfred, we got
Yeah,
together last in the beginning of July,
yeah,
and then we talked about 6 weeks ago about getting together because your engagements
yeah,
with Kuala Lumpur. So we
yeah,
decided to make it now, and if I recall correctly, I said it'll give us a lot more to talk about.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
By putting it
I
off
know, I
until
know,
now.
and we just
Look,
barely got started. It seems like.
yeah, and
Yeah,
so we need to stay in touch, and we'll
yeah,
we'll revisit this every few months.
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
take a look and see what's progressing. My concern is that one day we might be without internet or electric, and at that point, everyone's
well,
on their own.
it's
But until
telepathic.
then, well, yes,
It's telepathic and it's love. But look, please, as a closing here, can you leave our listeners with some thoughts for the season and for the coming of 2014?
absolutely. And I'll take it right back. Live your life in love. This is the time of year when everybody has good peace and joy toward all. We think of this is the time of most people have some sort of a Christ consciousness, even though it's not his exact birthday. It's a whole different holiday. Do the research on Saturnalia, and you'll find where it comes from. But at least people are somewhat conscious about this throughout the world, and their demeanor changes. We say, hey, season's greetings, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever the case might be. We greet each other. We'll greet total strangers. Oh, thank you very much. And we'll greet them and say goodbye in a specific manner, feeling total positiveness toward these individuals in most cases, unless it's Black Friday and you're at Walmart. But as the season progresses, we feel this exchange. And certainly we feel it more when family comes together. And so this is the type of feeling that we want to use as a seed, just the beginning, to plant that feeling and have goodwill toward each other throughout the year, without the holiday, and make it a part of our life and a part of our very being and a part of our concept. Bring us out of the alpha. Bring us out of the beta
Beta,
and bring us into the alpha.
alpha.
The beta test has failed. The beta test has failed. We have to revert back to the alpha programming. And the alpha programming was, hey, be fruitful, become many, create a family, spread love throughout the world. That's what we have to return to. And we will.
Yeah. Well, On that note, Peter, I want to thank you, and um, we look forward to your coming on again in the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, Alfred. Have a great night.
Thank you.